Let me tell you something very few people will ever admit. In fact, most people run away from it. The real leadership war isn't waged on stages or boardrooms. It's inside your head. It's fought in the late hours under the weight of self-doubt when no one is watching. That's where true leadership begins. If you can't master yourself, you have no business attempting to lead anyone else. Let me begin with a truth most people spend their lives avoiding. The greatest battle you will ever fight is not in the market, not against competitors, not against your boss, not even against society. The greatest battle you will ever fight is against yourself. And here is the uncomfortable reality. Most people lose that battle long before they ever step onto the so-called battlefield of life. They lose it in the silence of their own mornings, when the alarm rings and discipline whispers, "Get up." But comfort seduces, "Stay." They lose it when distractions pull them off course, when self-doubt speaks louder than self-belief, when excuses become more persuasive than action. The foundation of leadership, the real foundation of influence, of power, of authority, is self-mastery. You cannot lead others if you cannot lead yourself, period. If you are not able to conquer your own impulses, your own emotions, your own fears, then you are merely a pretender in the game of leadership. Because leadership is not about titles or positions. It is about the strength to first govern the chaos within. Let's be clear, leading yourself is infinitely harder than leading others. Why? Because when you lead others, there is accountability, there is visibility, there is applause. People are watching you, so you perform. But when it is just you alone in your room, facing the mirror of your own flaws, there is no audience, no clapping hands, no cheering crowd. It is in that loneliness where the truth is revealed. Can you stay disciplined when no one is watching? Can you stay consistent when there is no recognition? Can you keep moving forward when the results are invisible, slow, and uncertain? That is where leadership is born. Self-mastery is not a one-time event. It is not a motivational moment. It is not about feeling inspired. Self-mastery is the ruthless daily decision to impose structure on chaos. It is waking up when you don't feel like it. It is putting down the junk food when your body screams for sugar. It is choosing focus over distraction, clarity over confusion, action over procrastination. It is the repeated act of saying, "I will control myself before the world ever attempts to control me." Think about the people you admire. The true leaders, the ones who shift history, who bend industries, who shape nations. Do you think they rose to those heights without first mastering themselves? Discipline carved their paths long before opportunity knocked. Clarity sharpened their minds long before they were placed on stages. They were forged in the dark before they were celebrated in the light. What the world calls charisma, vision, or genius is nothing more than the public evidence of private mastery. And let me challenge you with this, the world will always test the integrity of your inner foundation. If you have not built self-mastery, the pressures of leadership will expose you, power will corrupt you. Authority will magnify your weaknesses. Money will reveal your lack of control. Influence will turn your ego into your prison. But if you have mastered yourself, if you know discipline, if you know restraint, if you know delayed gratification, then no amount of pressure will destroy you. You become unshakable because you have already faced the most difficult enemy, yourself. The mistake many people make is chasing the external before mastering the internal. They want titles. They want positions. They want applause. They want followers. But what good is it to gain influence over others if you are a slave to your own weaknesses? What good is it to command a company if you cannot command your own focus? What good is it to build an empire if you cannot control your own appetites? That is not leadership. That is performance. And performance without mastery always collapses. The path of self-mastery is not glamorous. It is not exciting. It is repetitive, boring, brutal work. It is discipline when nobody cares. It is practice when nobody notices. It is sacrifice when nobody thanks you. It is saying no when everyone else says yes. It is delaying gratification when the world screams for shortcuts. And yet, it is this very unglamorous work that creates extraordinary lives. Because here is the paradox. Once you have mastered yourself, leading others becomes natural. Influence flows effortlessly. People follow those who radiate control, clarity, and conviction. They trust the leader who has tamed his own chaos, because he can now help them navigate theirs. But the opposite is also true. People can smell hypocrisy. They can sense when someone lacks control. They can feel when someone's words are not backed by discipline. You cannot fake self-mastery. It is either there or it is not. So the real question is not, can you lead others? The real question is, can you lead yourself? Can you wake up and command your day? Can you manage your emotions under pressure? Can you resist the distractions designed to steal your focus? Can you build habits that outlast moods? Can you discipline yourself when comfort is easier? Because until you answer yes to these questions, every other form of leadership you attempt will be fragile. Here is the truth. The world doesn't need more managers. It doesn't need more motivational speakers. It doesn't need more bosses. It needs leaders who have mastered themselves so fully that they inspire discipline without speaking. They radiate clarity without forcing. They command respect without demanding. Self-mastery is the foundation of that kind of leadership. Without it, you're just a loud voice in a noisy room. With it, you become a force that shifts the ground beneath people's feet. And so the challenge stands before you. Will you continue pretending? Will you keep seeking external validation while avoiding internal conquest? Or will you step into the ring with the only opponent that truly matters, yourself? Because if you can win that fight, you will never fear another one again. Authority is easy. Authority is given by title, position, rank. A signature on a contract can give you authority. A job description can give you authority. But authority without emotional intelligence is like a lion with no teeth. It looks powerful until the moment it opens its mouth. Because the truth is this: people don't follow authority, they follow connection. They don't commit because of your position, they commit because of how you make them feel. And if you cannot master the realm of emotions, your own and those of others, you cannot lead, no matter what badge or title you wear. Let me tell you why this matters. We live in an age where authority is collapsing. Once upon a time, people respected someone simply because of the office they held. Today, that's gone. The CEO who shouts at employees loses them to the competitor across the street. The politician who governs with arrogance loses the respect of the public. The parent who leads with anger loses the ear of their children. Authority without emotional intelligence collapses because the world no longer tolerates command and control. People want leaders who understand, who listen, who feel. But before you can understand others, you must first master yourself. Emotional intelligence begins not with managing people. It begins with managing your own inner storms. You cannot lead when you are held hostage by anger. You cannot inspire when you are enslaved by insecurity. You cannot make wise decisions when fear dictates your judgment. Leadership requires clarity, and clarity requires emotional control. That is why the strongest leaders are not those who shout the loudest, but those who remain calm when the world is on fire. Think about it. Anyone can lead when times are good, when profits are up, when applause is loud. But what happens when everything goes wrong, when the team is panicking, when the numbers are bleeding, when the pressure is suffocating? In those moments, authority means nothing. In those moments, what people search for is not your title. They search for your presence. They look at your face, your tone, your energy. They are asking one silent question. If he's calm, maybe we'll survive. If she believes, maybe there's still hope. That is emotional intelligence in action. Emotional intelligence is the art of understanding the unspoken. It is reading the room when no one says a word. It is recognizing the fatigue in your colleagues' eyes, even though they tell you, "I'm fine." It is sensing when morale is low and choosing encouragement instead of criticism. It is knowing when to push hard and when to pull back. Authority tells people what to do. Emotional intelligence makes people want to do it, and that is the difference. Do not mistake kindness for weakness. Emotional intelligence is not softness. It is not avoiding hard conversations. On the contrary, it gives you the strength to deliver tough truths with precision and humanity. A boss without emotional intelligence will crush people with blunt words. A leader with emotional intelligence can deliver the same message in a way that cuts but does not kill, corrects but also inspires. And when people feel understood, even in correction, they grow rather than resent. Here is the mistake many so-called leaders make. They believe that if they demand loudly enough, people will obey. Yes, maybe for a moment. Fear can create obedience, but it can never create commitment. You can scare a man into showing up, but you cannot scare him into giving his heart. Fear makes people comply, but emotional intelligence makes them commit. And commitment is what sustains leadership long after authority fades. So the question becomes, how do you build this muscle of emotional intelligence? You start by confronting yourself. Ask, what triggers me? What emotions control me? Do I lash out when I feel disrespected? Do I shut down when I feel challenged? Do I get defensive when I am wrong? These patterns, left unchecked, will sabotage your leadership. But once you become aware, you gain power, because the man who knows his triggers can pause before reacting. The woman who knows her insecurities can confront them before they poison the room. The mastery of self then extends outward. You begin to listen more than you speak. You begin to observe more than you instruct. You start noticing what motivates people, what discourages them, what excites them, what drains them. And once you see it, you use it, not to manipulate, but to align. That is the secret. True leadership is not manipulation, it is alignment. It is aligning people's emotions, energy, and effort with a purpose greater than themselves. That is impossible without emotional intelligence. Authority is temporary. Today you are the boss, tomorrow someone else signs the contract. Today you are the leader, tomorrow the title shifts. But emotional intelligence, that is eternal. People will forget your title, but they will never forget how you made them feel. They will forget your instructions, but they will never forget your presence. Emotional intelligence leaves a mark long after authority expires. So I ask you, do you want to be remembered as the one who had the title, or the one who had the impact? Do you want to be the boss they feared, or the leader they followed even when you were gone? The difference will never be your authority. It will always be your ability to master emotion, to stay calm in chaos, to connect with people not as assets, but as human beings. Because at the end of the day, authority may open the door, but emotional intelligence is what keeps people walking with you once they are inside. And when you learn that, you will understand why authority alone is never enough. Discipline is not built in the spotlight. It is not forged in front of cheering crowds, or in boardrooms full of applause, or on stages drenched in lights. Discipline is forged in silence, in isolation. In the places where no one is watching, no one is clapping, and no one will ever know the choices you made. That is why it is the hardest kind of discipline, because it demands that you hold yourself accountable when there is no external reward, no recognition, no applause. It demands that you fight the war within when there is no audience to impress. Think about the moments that have shaped your life the most. They were not the public victories, they were the private choices. The decision to keep studying while everyone else was out celebrating. The decision to save when everyone else was spending. The decision to train harder, longer, and more consistently, even when no one cared. Those moments don't trend on social media, but they define your destiny. Because what you do in isolation is what the world eventually sees in the light. The problem with most people is simple. They only perform when the spotlight is on. They only deliver when someone is watching. They only stay consistent when they are being monitored. That is not discipline. That is performance. And performance without discipline collapses the moment the audience leaves. The true test of who you are is what you do when the room is empty, when the cameras are off, when no one is around to give you a pat on the back. Isolation is brutal because it removes excuses. When you are alone, there is no boss to blame, no system to blame, no competitors to point at. It is just you versus you, and that is the hardest battle anyone will ever fight. Because when you fail in isolation, you have to face the uncomfortable truth that it was not someone else's fault. It was yours. That is why so many people run from isolation. They drown it with noise, with distractions, with entertainment. They do not want to face themselves. But the people who rise, the people who build, the people who lead, they embrace isolation because they know it is the arena of transformation. Discipline in isolation is saying yes to consistency when motivation has died. It is showing up every day to do the work, even when no one will ever know you did it. It is writing the book before you have an audience. It is building the business when no investor cares. It is training your body when no competition is in sight. It is waking up early when there is no meeting on your calendar. That is where greatness is created. Not in the noise of recognition, but in the silence of unseen labor. Understand this: the rewards people admire are the byproduct of sacrifices they never see. The athlete on the podium is only standing there because of the hours he spent alone in the gym when no one else bothered to show up. The entrepreneur with the global company only got there because of the countless nights of isolated work that no one clapped for. The author whose book inspires millions only wrote it because of the lonely hours spent at a desk with nothing but a blank page and determination. You see the product, but you don't see the process, and the process is always hidden in isolation. That is why isolation is a filter. It separates pretenders from contenders. Anyone can post about ambition. Anyone can talk about discipline. Anyone can perform when the world is watching. But when it is just you and your habits, you and your doubts, you and your procrastination, only the disciplined survive. That is why so few people ever rise above average, because they want the applause of discipline without the isolation that discipline requires. Let me be clear: isolation is not punishment, it is preparation. When you choose discipline in isolation, you are building muscles the world cannot yet see. You are developing habits that will outlast moods. You are building resilience that will carry you when pressure arrives. So when the world finally places demands on you, you will not collapse. You will rise, because you have already been training in silence for this moment. The hardest part of isolation is the lack of recognition. You will question yourself. You will doubt the process. You will ask, does this even matter? That is where most people quit. But here is the truth. Every rep, every page, every line of code, every step in silence is a deposit into your future. When the moment comes for you to perform, those deposits will pay out. The applause will come later, but only because you stayed disciplined now. Discipline in isolation is not about proving anything to others. It is about proving everything to yourself. It is about becoming the kind of person who can be trusted with responsibility, with power, with influence, because the world does not give lasting authority to those who crumble in private. It gives it to those who mastered themselves when no one was looking. So here is the question you must answer. What are you doing in your isolation? Are you wasting it with distractions, or are you building something worth showing the world? Are you hiding from yourself, or are you confronting the uncomfortable truths that will make you better? Because every moment in isolation is a choice. You are either planting seeds for your future or burying your potential. Remember this: when the lights finally shine, when the stage is finally yours, when the opportunity finally arrives, it will be too late to prepare. You will only be able to perform at the level of discipline you built in isolation. That is why isolation is not the enemy, it is the gift. It is the laboratory of greatness, and those who embrace it, those who remain disciplined within it, will one day step into the spotlight not hoping to perform, but ready to dominate. When you step into leadership, something profound happens. You no longer live only your own life. You become a mirror. Your behavior, your words, your habits, even your smallest inconsistencies, are reflected back to you through the people you lead. Leadership amplifies everything about you. It magnifies your strengths, but it also magnifies your weaknesses. It multiplies your discipline, but it also multiplies your flaws. And the uncomfortable truth is this: your team will not become who you say they should be. They will become who you are. That is why leadership is not about others first. It is about yourself. The people who follow you are not just listening to what you say. They are watching what you do. They are studying how you react under pressure. They are observing how you handle failure, how you deal with success, how you treat people who cannot give you anything in return. Every action becomes a lesson. Every habit becomes contagious. Every inconsistency becomes permission. That is the terrifying weight of leadership. You do not just lead people, you replicate yourself in them. Consider this: if you cut corners, your team will cut deeper corners. If you lack discipline, your team will drown in laziness. If you gossip, they will spread poison. If you lose your temper, they will normalize anger. You think you are simply expressing yourself, but in truth, you are setting the cultural tone for everyone who follows you. They are not just taking notes on your instructions.
They are building habits off your behavior. Leadership is not a speech, it is a reflection. On the other hand, if you are disciplined, your people will respect discipline.
If you are consistent, they will strive for consistency. If you lead with humility, they will model humility. If you treat people with respect, they will respect others. In this way, leadership amplifies your best qualities.
The standard you hold for yourself becomes the ceiling they reach for. That is why some leaders create excellence wherever they go, while others leave behind chaos. The difference is not in the people. It is in the reflection. This is why self-leadership is non-negotiable. Because the version of yourself that you refuse to confront will be the very flaw that poisons your team. The habits you excuse in yourself will become the habits your people normalize. If you tolerate mediocrity in your own life, you give silent permission for mediocrity in theirs. And let's be honest, people rarely rise above the example of their leader. They rarely outperform the culture that is set at the top. You cannot demand of others what you have not demanded of yourself. Too many people think leadership is about control. They imagine that authority is enough to get results. They think, I'll tell them what to do, and they will do it. That might work temporarily. But over time, people follow what they see, not what they are told. You cannot hide behind instructions when your example contradicts them. Words can inspire, but example transforms. People will forget half of what you say, but they will never forget the standard you live by.
And here's the real danger. Leadership doesn't just reflect, it amplifies. That means even small cracks in your character can become massive fractures in your culture. If you are occasionally dishonest, they will become consistently dishonest. If you occasionally compromise, they will compromise without hesitation. If you are occasionally distracted, they will live distracted. Leadership multiplies behavior, both good and bad. And when you understand that, you stop seeing leadership as a position of privilege and start seeing it as a responsibility of the highest order. But here lies the power as well, because just as your flaws are amplified, so too are your virtues. If you are relentless in your pursuit of growth, your people will chase growth. If you are calm in chaos, your people will steady themselves in the storm. If you push yourself to higher standards, your people will raise their own. Leadership at its best creates a ripple effect where your discipline becomes their discipline. Your courage becomes their courage. Your vision becomes their vision. That is how leaders build movements, not just teams. So ask yourself this: if the people around you became exactly like you, would you be proud of the culture that emerges? If your team adopted your work ethic, your habits, your attitude, would they excel or would they collapse? That question is the most honest reflection of your leadership, because in truth, they already are becoming more like you than you realize. Leadership is not about shaping others in theory. It is about shaping yourself in reality. And once you do, the reflection takes care of itself. If you want disciplined people, live disciplined. If you want a culture of accountability, hold yourself accountable first. If you want integrity, don't just demand it, demonstrate it. The reflection is unavoidable. You can't tell them to climb mountains while you sit in the valley. You can't tell them to sacrifice while you live in indulgence. You can't tell them to stay committed when you yourself are inconsistent. They will follow your reflection, not your rhetoric. This is why leadership is not a role for the faint-hearted. It requires brutal honesty with yourself. It requires you to hold the mirror up and ask, would I follow me? Because if the answer is no, then why should anyone else? The reflection is not biased. It does not lie. Your people are the proof of your leadership. They are the living evidence of who you really are. So the challenge is this: stop obsessing over changing others and start obsessing over changing yourself. Stop trying to manage people into greatness and start mastering yourself into excellence. Because once you elevate yourself, the reflection naturally elevates. Once you embody the standard, the culture aligns. Once you live the example, the amplification takes care of itself. Leadership is a mirror, and the question is not, what do they see? The real question is, do you like the reflection? Because that reflection is not just about today. It is the legacy you leave behind. The world applauds what it sees. It celebrates the victories, the awards, the titles, the achievements. But what the world does not see, what it will never understand, is the hidden battle that came before the triumph. Every public success is built on a private war. Every trophy is purchased with scars no one applauds. And the difference between those who rise and those who stay forgotten is simple. One group chose to fight the hidden battle, the other chose to avoid it.
That hidden battle is the one inside your head, the whispers of doubt, the voices of fear, the endless temptations of comfort. It is the battle that begins every morning when the alarm rings, and you have to decide whether to rise or roll over. It is the battle that happens when the easy option sits right beside the hard choice. It is the fight to keep moving when nobody cares, when nobody notices, when nobody even believes in you. That is the hidden battle, and it defines whether you will ever stand in the light of triumph. The tragedy is that most people think success is about talent. They think it is about luck. They think it is about connections. No, success is about discipline in the dark. It is about sacrifice when nobody is watching. It is about choosing to endure pain today so that you can hold victory tomorrow. What people call overnight success is nothing more than years of hidden battles fought and won. The applause you see is simply the echo of struggles you never witnessed. Understand this: the hardest battles you will ever fight are the ones no one knows about. They are invisible, they are silent, they are lonely. Nobody will post about them. Nobody will congratulate you for them. Nobody will cheer you for resisting temptation, for saying no to distraction, for grinding through boredom, for holding on through despair. But those battles are the currency of triumph. If you don't fight them, you will never win the ones that people notice. Public triumph is seductive because it looks glamorous. The spotlight, the recognition, the influence, it seems like the destination everyone wants. But hidden battles are the price of admission. You cannot bypass them. You cannot fake them. You cannot outsource them. You must fight your own fight. And if you don't, the moment you step into the spotlight, you will collapse under the weight of it, because the spotlight does not create character, it exposes it. It shines on everything you built, or everything you neglected. Let's be honest, the hidden battle is brutal. It is not romantic. It is not pretty. It feels like failure day after day. It feels like you're making no progress, like nobody cares, like it doesn't matter. That's why most people quit. They think, if no one notices, why am I doing this? But that's the secret. Greatness is built when you do the work that no one notices. The hidden battle is what separates dreamers from doers, talkers from builders, pretenders from contenders. Think of the athlete. The crowd cheers the victory. They never see the endless mornings in the gym, the pain of repetition, the sacrifices of diet, the lonely grind of training when friends are out enjoying life. Think of the entrepreneur. People admire the success story. They never see the nights of doubt, the fear of failure, the rejections, the relentless work when the money is gone and the world is against them. Think of the artist. They applaud the masterpiece. They never see the hours of frustration, the drafts thrown away, the endless self-doubt. Behind every public triumph is a graveyard of private battles. Here's the part nobody wants to hear. You will lose some of those battles. You will fail. You will fall. You will feel like giving up. That is normal. What defines you is not whether you lose. It is whether you get back up and fight again. The hidden battle is not about perfection. It is about persistence. It is about showing up again and again, even when you've been knocked down, even when you're tired, even when the voices in your head scream at you to quit. The irony is this: the harder the hidden battle, the greater the public triumph. The depth of your struggle determines the height of your success. The greater the pain you endure, the more powerful the story you will tell. That is why you must not fear the hidden battle. You must embrace it. You must see it as the proof that you are being prepared for something greater. So when you find yourself in the quiet moments of struggle, when no one is there to cheer you, when the doubt feels louder than the dream, remember this: you are fighting the most important battle of your life. And though no one may see it now, one day they will see the result. They will see the triumph. They will clap. They will cheer. They will admire. But you will know the truth. You will know that the victory was not won on that stage, but in the silence, in the dark, in the lonely hours when no one believed. Public triumph is the echo. The hidden battle is the sound. One cannot exist without the other. And so the question is not whether you want success. Everyone wants success. The real question is, are you willing to fight the hidden battle that comes before it?
because only those who win in the dark ever shine in the light. So ask yourself this: are you building a public persona, or are you forging an unbreakable inner foundation? Because if the lies, distractions, and chaos of your mind haven't fallen to your resolve, you're building on sand. Here's your call to arms: discipline the invisible, master the void, and only then, with armor forged in solitude, dare to lead the world. Now go do it, and don't wait for anyone's permission.